So here we have the Land Cruiser's carburettor. Now, when I got the car running, it just sounded like there may be a little bit of a drip of fuel going in. We had a slightly uneven tick over. So the best thing to do is actually strip it down and renew all the wearing bits with this lovely kit. Right, so I'm going to start from the top and work my way in. So as it stands, there are lots of little linkages to wear, lots of little bits here and there. And these butterfly spindles, they can get a bit of play in them. So once we start getting it apart, we'll be able to see the extent of that wear. If I can just gradually work my way in, then I've got some sort of chance of making sure that I don't end up with lots of useful extra bits. I think what I'm going to do is just put that back on there and put the pin through. That way everything's together as it should be. Oh, this thing's a nightmare. There's loads of tiny little components that are so easy to lose. Maybe there are some components that are still attached inside. Let me see. Ah, there we go. That seems to be breaking the seal. So the gasket between the two halves is just sticking a little bit. So hold on, that's that off there. Just ease it up gently. Again, something may spring out, and I don't want that to happen. There we go. Right, so there's my first section off. Now here we have the float. And the purpose of this is to operate a little needle valve within here, just in this little chamber here. So what happens is when the petrol is pumped through to the carburettor, the float goes up until it shuts off the needle valve, and then that shuts off the petrol inlet. If I try and blow now with the float up, can't blow. If I take it down, you can hear it hissing through. Doesn't taste very nice. And here we have one of the wearing components. This little rubber seal here is a seal for the accelerator pump. And that is one of the things that I'm pretty sure I'm going to find inside there. In fact, I can see the entire component in there. Bingo! I think we may have the right kit. Let's just have a little look. I take this rubber boot off and pull through. There we have the accelerator pump actuation shaft. I'll just check that against my new one here, and that looks like it's exactly the same size, so that's good. So that's one part we're going to be replacing. And what I am going to do is I'm going to remove the final bits of the gasket, and also I'm going to remove the float, so I can now clean this top bit, and that's what I'm going to do. Right, so there's the top part of the carburettor, nice and clean. Nice and free in operation. No nasty grittiness or anything like that, that's all good. That's what we like. So, here is one of the main jets. Now what happens here, the petrol is fed up through these little holes and out and down through this little tube in here, which sits in the venturi of the carburettor. Now that's a narrowing of the throat of the carburettor. Now at this point, as air passes through and is drawn in by the engine, a depression is caused which pulls the petrol up and in and through, and it atomizes and disperses amongst the air. That's what gives you most of your running power, a mixture of the fuel and air to keep the engine going. There are other jets that come into play when the engine is under different sorts of loads, either a heavy load or running fast, or of course when accelerating hard and then a squirt of petrol goes in. And that's how these fixed jet carburettors work. with a series of different jets that come into play at different times to assist the main jets. What I'm going to do now is replace this little diaphragm here. It's like a vacuum diaphragm. Now, this is operated from the inlet manifold. As the engine is put under load, there is more of a depression, more of a vacuum in the inlet manifold as it's drawing in more air and fuel. So what happens is this diaphragm gets pulled and it pulls open this second butterfly, which allows in more air and more fuel, which gives it a lot more power under load. And there is the rest of the diaphragm. There's a little spring in there. Now I can't see any holes in this. Now I can't see any holes in this diaphragm, but that doesn't mean to say that it's not slightly perforated, because it is really quite hard. So I think this has perished a bit, and this one has kind of gone, not so much brittle, but there's not so much give in it anymore, so it won't really properly be doing its job. And in fact, here we go, there we are, there is our problem. I think I can see that that is letting in light. We've got a little split here, so there is one problem that would have come to light. So put the car under load and this wouldn't have worked properly, which means that it wouldn't have got enough fuel when going up hills when under load. Therefore it would have faltered on the hills. So that's that carburettor rebuilt insofar as all the parts that I can easily get to. I think there are a few blanking plugs in here which may be there to stop me getting in and tampering with everything.